I just have an honest question I can't figure out the answer to this morning. How do you come together? How do you unite a country when people are out there in the streets of major American cities celebrating a stone cold killer? How do you do that? I'm not sitting here at 6:05 and saying, I know the answer. I don't. If I did, I would be doing something else right now. But we are now 1 week removed from the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And coincidentally, yesterday, Luigi Mangioni, who infamously murdered a healthcare CEO just a few months ago, was in a courthouse. And outside the courthouse, here is what it sounded like.
Free! Luigi! 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 Free! Luigi!
So that is happening with people who are not even masked. They're unmasked as they're chanting, "Free Luigi." Of course, Luigi Mangioni, who is the suspected killer of the healthcare CEO who was in a Manhattan courthouse yesterday. And this came after a New York judge tossed Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's terrorism charges against Luigi Mangioni. What do you do? I mean, these people are out there cheering on a suspected murderer and wanting him to be a free man, not because they think he's innocent. You know, like, this is not one of those, well, did he do it? Did he not? They may have the wrong guy. Nobody's making that case. That's not what's going on here. You've got a demonic and demented percentage of this population right now that celebrates death. Because in their eyes, the people that they are killing are somehow their oppressors. That's what this comes down to. There's a Marxist mentality to all of this that ties in an oppressed portion of the population. Whether you're oppressed by the words of Charlie Kirk because you disagree with him, or you're oppressed by the big bad healthcare CEO, that's the common strain in all this. And it's beyond dangerous. I mean, we have literally people getting killed over this kind of ideology. And while unification needs to happen, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we have got to come together. I don't know how you come together with that. I don't know what you can do to possibly bring people together when these are the individuals who aren't even afraid to show their faces. They don't care if they're friends, their family, their employers, their classmates, if they're in college. They don't care if any of these people see their faces all over social media and on broadcast television. They don't give a rip anymore. They're just out there doing their thing, celebrating Luigi Mangioni yesterday. And the fact that there's no take a step back moment and say, you know, in the wake of what happened last week, maybe we need to look in the mirror. Maybe we need to reevaluate. Maybe we've got to figure out how to tone down the rhetoric and make sure there's less violence in this country. That's not the approach. And this was not 5 people. I mean, I'm not saying this is mainstream, but there are dozens of people in the streets of New York City yesterday chanting "Free Luigi," celebrating Luigi Mangioni, showing up with signs like they're 7-year-olds at a Major League Baseball game for the first time. Hey, throw me a foul ball there, Bobby Witt Jr. Like, that's what they're doing. They've got their poster boards out. Like they're a 10-year-old at an NBA game or something like that. I mean, it's a joke. It's dangerous. It's demonic, and it's getting people killed. So, yes, it's a small group of crazies. You're absolutely right. Some of you on the text line are noting this. But let's be honest. For every crazy that's on the streets of New York City yesterday, even if it's a couple of dozen, few dozen, how many people couldn't make it? How many people are sitting behind their computer saying, I agree with that? How many people are liking those posts on social media that they see? I'm not saying that's the majority of the population, but I do think it's a growing, albeit still, thank goodness, small percentage of our population. I still think that's the case. And that's something right there that you look at, and you have to be able to say to yourself, at this point in time in American history, what do we do to turn down the temperature? And I mean that from leaders across the board. I mean, I watched some of the stuff going on Capitol Hill yesterday, and I just can't watch it. I can't. These guys and gals just, it's all one big pissing contest. It's all one big show for TV. They're screaming at each other just like they were a week ago yesterday. And then, someone like Charlie Kirk gets assassinated. Some people say the right things. They say, let's all come together. Let's, make sure we tone down the rhetoric. And days later, they're all back at it. All of them. Every single one of them. And even though I've got my preferred, of course, viewpoints and politicians, and we all know about that. I don't hide any of that here on this show. It's not the point right now. Who's going to step up and be a leader? Who's the one who's going to step up to the plate and try to bring people together somewhat and say, first off, y'all call out your own side when you need to, okay? America's future depends on it. We can't get rid of all the crazy. We're a country of 330 million people. We do have free speech. I get all that against your government. Not free speech against your employer, but against your government. I understand all that. With freedom like we have in this country comes risk. That's also, unfortunately, part of the equation. But, man, right now, when I watched that yesterday, I couldn't help but just think to myself, what do we do right now? Now, on the text line, I've got this from 0266. The answer to every question is Jesus Christ. How do you get people there? I mean, yes, we all can do this in our own lives. But, man, the texter is absolutely right. But how do you get people there? Charlie Kirk was trying to do it, and it cost him his life. He was literally in the thick of it, and he got killed. I'm not sitting here at 6:13 on a Wednesday morning thinking I've got all or any of the answers on this one. But it was so beyond disturbing to see that play out the way it did yesterday in the wake of what this country has been through over the last week and a half. And we'll have plenty more to dive into with you here on KCMO at 913-408-7957, our studio line and our text line on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Now, there's a lot of new information coming out as well between the suspected shooter in the Charlie Kirk story and this girlfriend, boyfriend that he was with after he allegedly shot Charlie Kirk. So what do we know about that? Do the text messages reveal something? There's a lot of questions still out there, and we'll get to that coming up on 95.7 FM KCMO. These text messages that have been released between the suspected assassin of Charlie Kirk and his roommate, girlfriend, boyfriend, who just happened to be transitioning, when I read them right away, I said, something just doesn't seem right about this. The text messages between these two seem carefully crafted. You think about two people in their early 20s and how this text conversation between these two goes down. And right away, something about it just makes you say to yourself, gosh, either these two are mature way beyond their years, which I don't believe they are for a second, or this was potentially part of a plan. Because as you read the text message exchange between the individual, the suspect, and his girlfriend, boyfriend, what you're seeing here is somebody who is basically trying to absolve their significant other and make it appear like their significant other had absolutely no knowledge or involvement in any of this. And we don't have the answers right now, just to be clear. The facts are not there. The roommate is reportedly cooperating, while the suspected shooter has not been, per law enforcement, cooperating. But what's interesting to me is I'm reading through the text messages that were released yesterday and talked about by law enforcement out in Utah. The suspected shooter says here, since Trump got in office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. He then goes on to say, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. He adds, you are all I worry about, love. The roommate then responds, I'm much more worried about you. He then says, if any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer, and stay silent. He then says to his significant other, I'm still okay, my love, but I am stuck in Orem for a little while longer. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I got to grab my rifle still. I'm sorry to involve you. She writes back, you weren't the one who did it, right? He says, I am. I'm sorry. She says, I thought they caught the person. He says, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. She says, why? He responds, why did I do it? She says, yeah. He responds, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. She writes back, how long have you been planning this? He says, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, meaning his rifle, but there's a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. So this conversation's going on through text message between the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk and his significant other. And they're having this conversation on text, knowing full well the texts are going to come out. Right? Like, this guy was an honor student. He was not a dumb person. They know the text messages are, if they get caught, eventually going to be out there. So was this part of a plan to basically absolve the roommate? I'm sure that investigators are looking into that, where he basically acts on this text message like he's doing this out of just immense love for his significant other, and that he had been planning this for a little bit over a week, and she had nothing to do with it and knew nothing about it, and oh my goodness, why would you do this? Oh, I love you, baby, I love you. It's crazy town. But it also reads like something a very smart former honor roll student who did very well on his ACT would concoct. So basically, there's a written record potentially absolving the person that he's in love with. That's where my head went right away. And I don't know how it's going to play out, but the text messages were just way too convenient. It's like they were scripted. And you know that law enforcement's digging into that, but right out of the gates, he also makes it very clear that he's motivated by hatred. He's motivated by the ideology of the individual that he assassinated. So he is laying that out there, knowing full well if he is caught, well, the evidence is clear as day. 913-408-7957. John's in Topeka. John, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
Good morning, Pete. My question for you is, why would law enforcement allow that to be released when it's evidence, to be used against him? I mean, wouldn't the defense just eviscerate them, say, you let this leak? How can you use this as evidence against him? What part of this is actually true? Because is it actual factual, or did you guys, if you guys can't keep it together, how is any of this case applicable to my client?
I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to pretend to be one there, John. But, I think that it's important for law enforcement right now to be transparent, and they haven't been in too many of these types of situations. So I'm glad that they're doing it. And I don't think a text message really hurts their case here. They're just laying out what they've got. And they talked about how they had fingerprints on the towel and the gun that they recovered. They've got now these text messages. I'm sure that we've got plenty of folks in the law industry who could call in and answer that, or text in and answer that for us. I don't know why they wouldn't be able to release the text messages, because to me, the public needs information, and getting behind the ideology and motivation of this person is, I think, helpful right now about 1 week into the investigation.
All right. I hear you. And also what you were talking about earlier, the mindset, these people on the left that we're talking about, they've got a communist ideology, and how they deal with things in history wasn't very nice. How they dealt with people that disagreed with them. We got Stalin, we got Mao, we got examples all around the world of how they dealt with people, and that's how they think about us, and that's what they've been taught. Because in college, that if you disagree, it's violence, and it's okay to come at violence with violence. Mm-hmm. And the fact is that some of these professors, like the Weather Underground, the people that bombed the Pentagon back in the 70s, that they became professors there in Illinois State University that were teaching Barack Obama, and that he learned from. They said that in the United States, the Weather Underground, their statement was that 25 to 50 million Americans need to be eliminated to be able to push through their communist agenda. And they're still got this ideology that they're pushing forward. They're just not being loud about it. But now they're getting loud, and they're showing themselves, because we see them as wrong. We see us as evil.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even, this is not even left versus right, right? It's not capitalism versus communism. It is, as you said there at the end, John, good versus evil. That's what this is. That's what we're living through right now. You can sit there and debate policy all day. You can debate, DEI policy all day. You can debate tax rates all day. We can talk about property tax issues. I mean, those are things that reasonable people and normal people can go back and forth on. But you have a good versus evil back and forth in conversation taking place right now in this country. And God willing, the good wins out. But I admit, some days you question it. 913-408-7957. That's how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, we also know that a couple of teachers are on leave in our area over posts they made about Charlie Kirk. We have the details next. So we have teachers around the Kansas City region who are finding themselves under investigation in the wake of social media posts following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So on the Kansas side, we've got this from a teacher down in Gardner, Edgerton. She is a science teacher at the high school, and according to multiple social media reports, her name is Leslie Hanzelka. And she posted on social media, "I'm saving my empathy for the children that got gunned down in Colorado. None left over for the terrible person who considered the slaughter of children to be an acceptable price to pay so that inadequate white men can pose naked in front of a mirror with a machine gun and pretend they're Rambo." Talking about you, John.
I was saying, she's revealing a little bit about herself there, isn't she? Hey, what are you into, lady?
That's a good point.
You like gladiators, Timmy?
Seriously. So this teacher down in Gardner, Edgerton, according to multiple reports that I'm seeing here on social media, is being investigated by the school district. And, I've seen a lot of posts like this over the last week insinuating that Charlie Kirk or anybody who is a defender of the Second Amendment is okay or accepts school shootings. And that is inherently so dishonest. We do obviously have a Second Amendment in this country. It does not mean that you accept school shootings. In fact, what Charlie did, right, a large part of his mission, and it's unbelievable. You know, I've watched more of his videos in the last week than I had the last, let's say, few months combined. I mean, not that I didn't like his stuff. I did, and I would watch his stuff, but I've watched a lot more of it in the wake of his assassination 1 week ago today, as I'm sure many of you have. But he was really about bringing people to faith and understanding that the rest will then take care of itself, right? If more people see the light, then they are far less likely to commit these heinous acts of violence. And that's what Charlie was about, but also understanding this is America. We do have free speech. We do have a Second Amendment. All these things that we cherish as truly Americana. But it doesn't mean that you sit there and you say, well, you know, I got to give up a couple of school shootings a year because of all this. No. I mean, we just had this tragedy in Minneapolis a couple of weeks ago, right? They have red flag laws. They have some of these state laws that people have suggested we put on the books to prevent somebody from committing some of these crimes, and it didn't work. So it was never as simple as ban this gun, ban that gun, have this law, have that law. When you are dealing with a growing percentage of evil, whether it's being found online or in real life, when you're dealing with a growing percentage of evil in your culture, you cannot just sit there and regulate it or policy make around it. We have a broken social fabric that doesn't get solved by a politician or a bill. It can't be. And that was, I would argue, a big part of the conversation that Charlie Kirk was having, whether it was on college campuses or on his shows or anywhere else. This fake narrative of, well, he was okay with school shootings. So anybody who doesn't want to see overregulation or overreach by the government on guns or anything else is basically okay with death. Well, boy, that's a ridiculous premise and argument to make, but basically that's what was being laid out here, allegedly by this teacher down in Gardner Edgerton, Leslie Hanzelka, on social media. So I'll try to dig into what's going on down there today and reach out to some folks that may be on the school board and find out if this is someone who's going to keep their job. I don't know. But then we also have some issues on the Missouri side of the state line. And this was actually reported by local television, Channel 9, KMBC, weighing in on this. In Hallsville, Missouri, so a tiny community out by Columbia, out in Boone County. So this is not in our backyard, but it's just northeast of Columbia. A couple of teachers found themselves at the center of a conversation and controversy there when they were put on paid administrative leave after social media posts about Charlie Kirk's death. So Channel 9 started off its report with this.
Despite calls for civility after Kirk's death, people who opposed his political views criticized him after his death.
Some Republicans have led the push to punish anyone they believe dishonored him, causing both public and private workers to lose their jobs. And KMBC9's Eric Graves talked to two First Amendment experts about how free speech applies to this situation.
Freedom of speech doesn't protect everything a person says or posts. Who you're employed by can also play a factor in if you can face retribution for something you say. In the days since conservative commentator Charlie Kirk was shot and killed, some people have faced backlash for social media posts casting Kirk in a negative light, while others have said it's their right to free speech.
Freedom of speech is supposed to protect even unpopular, inappropriate, rude speech.
So Channel 9 goes on to make it more about, let's talk to the free speech experts. Let's go to the guy at UMKC. I mean, I'm sure there are some nice professors over there at UMKC, but we really don't need the professor at UMKC to tell us what anybody with an ounce of common sense knows to be true. Free speech, yes, protects you from your government. No, it does not protect you from your employer. And if you are a school teacher, I guess technically, obviously, you're a government employee. But it doesn't mean that you get to be absolved from saying heinous things on social media about people. No, you do not get absolved from that at all, nor should you. I know it might be a gray area in some people's minds because you think to yourself, well, you work for the government and then you're getting fired by the government for your speech. Yeah, well, here's the thing. The founding fathers didn't really have this idea of government-run schools on the agenda when they started this country 250 years ago. So that may make this a little bit of a gray area, but it doesn't mean that you should keep your job as a public educator when you have the inability to censor yourself from saying awful things on social media, because that speaks to your judgment, John, is what that does.
Right. You're not going to jail. You got to say it, but there are repercussions.
Exactly right. And here's how Channel 9 KMBC ended this report on these two teachers out in Hallsville, north of Columbia, who are right now being investigated for things they said about Charlie Kirk.
Rowland says public school educators have entered a free speech gray area.
Some courts have said that if that produces a backlash or upheaval within the school, the teacher can be disciplined and it wouldn't violate the First Amendment.
Of course.
Yes, the experts I talked to say adding a statement to your social media bio like my views don't reflect those of my employer is by no means a foolproof cover against retribution from that employer.
What is happening?
Hold on. I love how they put this caveat. What do they think? The dumbest people in Kansas City watch local news? The experts say putting a line in your social media bio, like my opinions do not reflect that of my employer, does not save you from potential repercussions. Yeah. No kidding, Sherlock. Thanks.
Accounts and descriptions of this broadcast are property of...
I mean, way to talk down to your audience there, Channel 9. I love Chris Ketz. He's a friend. He does a great job. It's not on him. I mean, the reporter, it's like, dude, what do you think? The average IQ for Channel 9 is 7? I know you got to figure out how to end the story here, but that's not the way to do it. Anyone that puts nonsense like that in their social media is asking for trouble as far as I'm concerned.
Well, there you go. It's social media because you'll see stuff beginning tomorrow on Facebook. These are my pictures, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, you might as well be posting it on the scoreboard at Arrowhead, okay?
That's so good.
See it. They're not.
That is so good, man, and so ridiculous. Boy, you mean when I put on my X account, my views are not the opinions of my employer? That didn't mean I could just say whatever I wanted without any repercussion? What?
Talk about a bombshell.
Man, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. So these teachers did remove their posts. So I don't know what these two teachers in Hallsville said because they took down their posts. But the Hallsville school did say in a statement, we want to clarify that social media posts made by employees of the district in their personal capacities and outside of their school duties do not reflect the opinions of the district or the Board of Education, nor are they endorsed in any way by the district. As a public school district, we recognize our role is to create a learning environment where all students feel safe and valued. Both employees in Hallsville on paid voluntary leave. And that is right now being reviewed by the school district. And we'll see how it plays out. But that's a small community, too. Think about that, right? Like, you go to Hallsville, Missouri. Not that this should matter. Even if it was 90-10 blue to red versus red to blue, just makes it even that much worse. I'm telling you, these school districts, even in rural America, are inundated with people who do not represent the values of their communities that they're supposed to be serving, which tells you a lot about who is drawn to the industry right now, which is very concerning. I know some great conservative teachers out there, but you know and I know that you're not a growing percentage of your industry. And that's another concerning trend that we are seeing, sadly, not just in Kansas and Missouri, but across the country. Stuff you can't make up for 500, please, Alex. There you go. Let's get to Mazie Hirono, member of Congress, Hawaii, was interviewing Kash Patel yesterday, head of the FBI, and was questioning why they require women who want to be on the force to do pull-ups. One pull-up. Take a listen to this back and forth.
One question I had is,
yes,
you are now requiring applicants to be able to do a certain kind of pull-ups, which a lot of women cannot because of physiological differences. Are you requiring these kinds of pull-ups?
We are requiring a physical program at BFTC at Quantico because FBI agents carrying guns in the field have to chase down bad guys and do really hard work. The physical fitness standards of those agents
are you requiring these kinds of pull-ups?
We are requiring everybody to pass the 1811 standards at BFTC. If you want to chase down a bad guy and put him in handcuffs, you better be able to do a pull-up.
The reason I ask is that there are concerns about whether or not being able to do these kinds of harsh pull-ups is really required of FBI agents.
Doing one pull-up is not harsh, and there are always medical exemptions to that.
Wait. You know what got buried here in this whole lead? Maisie Hirona admitting that there are physiological differences between men and women.
Talk about a bombshell.
Wait, hold on. I was told for the last couple of years that that's not true. That's what that you were trying to convince me that there is no difference between a male and a female.
Her name's Hazy Morono.
Yes, you're right. Thank you for that correction, John. Now I got Hazy saying, well, we've got physiological differences between men and women, so it's unfair to ask women to do a pull-up.
Harsh pull-up.
Normalize the bulge.
Stop, Mark. Enough. I've had enough. We're not doing that anymore, okay? Hazy Morono is now on our side. She's now admitting men are not women and women are not men, and there are physiological differences, and that is the takeaway.
Boom.
Beyond the fact that, yes, you should be able to do one pull-up if you're asked to carry a gun and chase bad guys. If you cannot do one pull-up, then you should not be in law enforcement chasing bad guys, John.
Well, and if to her that's the qualification being the FBI, we've got grade school children all over America doing the president's physical fitness test now who can do one pull-up.
Yeah, we've got plenty of 12-year-olds who can do a pull-up.
Yep.
Okay, so go do a pull-up. You want to do a pull-up contest? How do you think that would go here between the three of us? Let's throw Keatsman in the mix. Think we do okay? You guys got a pull-up in you there, John, you think?
Mark's parlay has me coming in fourth.
I could probably do 5
He'll be lifting
pull-ups.
the most weight, though. So.
I think
Mark,
I could do 5.
You got 5 in you?
I think so. I've been carrying that 30-year-old toddler around.
Yeah, but that's different than pulling yourself up.
I know.
You're generous. I think I got, and we're doing real pull-ups, okay? Real pull-ups, all the way down. None of these half-down pull-ups. I think I've got, I'm going to say 10.
10?
Oh, I'll get you down for 10.
John's got me down for 10. All
I
right.
used to be able to do 10 in my younger days.
Oh, gosh. Well, we could join the FBI, all right?
Yeah, right.
Cash
We're
Patel.
qualified.
We're qualified. Take us in. Let's do it. And Hazy Morono can't do one. We know that much. She'd come in last place if we added her to the mix. You could beat her, John, in pull-ups.
Please put her on the list for me.
we
Might
could
be able
do
to
that.
get out one or two, actually.
It's 8:05. We've got Night at the Tower tickets coming up later this hour. 8:45. Your next chance to text to win Night at the Tower tickets at the National World War I Museum and Memorial, courtesy of us here on KCMO 95.7 FM. Stream us every morning on your Alexa or your Google Home as well. So I read this in The Athletic. I thought it was a great piece, and it was a relatable piece to any parent or grandparent. And given I'm in that phase of life where the kids are young and they're starting to play sports, I was like, man, there are so many people that need to read this story. And I wanted to make sure I shared it with you here on KCMO. The headline, when should young athletes specialize in a sport? This story may help you decide. And the story goes on to basically say, there is no evidence that if your kid specializes in a sport at a very young age, it means they are more likely to end up achieving at a higher level in said sport. And one of the main examples used in this piece is none other than Patrick Mahomes. As they note here, Patrick Mahomes played on the baseball team for a short time in college. He didn't start at quarterback until his junior year of high school. In high school, he was playing basketball, he was playing baseball, and he was playing football. He was doing all three major sports. You look at Michael Phelps. He initially wanted to play youth football. And there's example after example after example like this of a lot of these guys, especially at the highest levels, playing multiple sports through high school. In fact, as The Athletic writes here, most of the top NFL quarterbacks played several sports in high school. They weren't just quarterbacks. And Patrick Mahomes actually credits his time on the baseball field, as the article notes, for a lot of his athleticism in the NFL. When he was a kid, football was his third favorite sport. And he credits the art of throwing from awkward positions and unconventional arm angles with his time playing shortstop. So I think about this in my own life because, you know, I'm coaching Claire and we're doing the first and second grade rec soccer, and it's been a lot of fun. But I remember after kindergarten soccer, there were some people who were like, yeah, you know, that rec league's not good enough for us anymore. I'm like, really? Your kid's 5. Your kid's 6. How do you know it's not good enough? Are they having fun? Are they learning something? Are they having a good time? Are you enjoying watching them? Then let them be 6, okay? Let them be a kid. Maybe at 8, 9, 10, I somewhat understand that. But at 6, I promise you, I watched that year of kindergarten soccer. The next Mia Hamm was not on that team. You know, some were better than others. That's life. But I didn't see Brandy Chastain out there. So many people are now looking at youth sports, and it's amazing. It is big business, too, right? I mean, it is. You see the signs all over town. The kids come home with the, you know, packages and the flyers and this and that and the next thing. And it's big business. And I think that's part of what's going on here. Parents, they get into this place where they end up feeling like they need to do something else. They need to go to what's next. They have to feel like there's something else coming. And it's really about, in many ways, their own insecurities. It's not even about the kid. It's not about how good the kid is. They're feeding into their own insecurities. And by the way, these groups are making a lot of money off it. These groups are out there making a fortune in some cases off of some of these leagues. And then you get The Athletic writing this. I mean, it was a huge piece. I'll post it on social media. You can see it there at Pete Mundo. And I mean, they go through all the data, all the studies that are out there showing that there's no evidence to suggest specializing in a sport at a young age does anything for you after the long term. They note here, in the years after the initial studies, researchers developed guidelines for coaches and parents. It's recommended that young athletes not train for a single sport for more than a few hours per week than their age. So basically, if you're 10 years old, you shouldn't train in a single sport more than 10 hours a week. And when it comes to team sports, they advise girls not specialize until the age of 11 to 13, while boys should wait until 13 to 15 to allow their bodies to mature skeletally. So, you know, when the data's out there, when the research is out there, that's good enough for me. And trust me, I mean, I enjoyed youth sports, but assuming that my kids are mine, they're not going pro in anything other than life. 913-408-7957.
One thing I've noticed is rec sports is kind of harder to get into nowadays. So I don't know if that's going to hurt people in the long run, because you can't really afford to go into the soccer and basketball and gymnastics all together. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you mean because of the price?
Cheaper. Yeah, price.
You think people are getting priced out?
Yeah, at times. If you're going to want to try to do 3 different sports and be competitive at all of them, it's hard to do.
I think that when you look at it, I think it's a good point there, Mark, for some people. If you're trying to do multiple sports at once, it can get tricky in some cases. But like dance is expensive, right? Dance, I get it. Dance is a monthly deal, several months. That gets expensive. But, you know, I'm trying to think. Claire's rec soccer is maybe $90.
Yeah, if you can do rec, then that's great.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what they should be doing at 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
You know, that's all you need to do. So, I think that you do that in the fall, in the winter for a sport, in the spring. I mean, that's not breaking the bank. That's still a pretty good deal. My only beef with the rec leagues that I've experienced so far is they don't keep score. Still in first and second grade.
Yeah, they should keep score.
Come on, they should keep score. The girls know what's going on here, okay? They know that we smoked them on Sunday 8-0. All right, they're fired up. Let them be excited. Let them know that they won the game. So I've been telling them when they won, and they know when they won or they lost. And I'm going to keep doing that because I think at first and second grade levels, it's okay to understand that you won or you lost. At kindergarten, I get it. Leave it out. But first, second grade, they should be allowed to talk about winning and losing. Scott's in Lawrence. What's up, Scott?
Well, I'm calling it if there's probably people out there listening. I happen to be an official, and I've officiated baseball, basketball, and volleyball all the way from the little kiddos to all the way up to actually small college in the summertime, traveling teams. And the number of parents out there that think their kid is the next coming of Michael Jordan or name any professional player here. I mean, it's amazing. And boy, you get a call. You make a call just a little bit that goes against their kid or something like that. They're climbing the backstop. You've ruined my kid's life. He'll never get that $1 million contract now. I mean, it's amazing. And the number of times I've had kids on the field go, I wish our parents would just leave and let us play.
Wow. Is that right?
Absolutely. If I'm lying, I'm dying. I promise you. But
Wow.
anyway, thanks. Love your show in the morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Scott. I mean, that's sad, but that gets back to the insecurities of the parent. Too much of this is driven by the insecurities of the parent. Whether it's yelling at a ref, whether it's having a kid specialize, 12 hours a week in a sport when he's 8 years old, it's about the parent. It's not about the kid. It's not about looking out for the kid. Al in Platte City. What's up, Al? You're on KCMO. Good morning.
I have a son-in-law played 3 years at Division I University and is an orthopedic surgeon now. And he's amazed that parents come in and say, well, I spent all this money on my kid's, pitching coach or hitting coach or this and that, and they didn't get a scholarship. I'm so disappointed. And he thinks maybe you should have put that money in a long-term investment for your education of your child rather than that, and let them just play. His kids are very good athletes, but they just play school teams and local recs. They don't travel. They don't, we have neighbors, the kids travel all around the state to play, and family told me the other day they've been traveling forever, and now their daughter says they're not interested.
Wow. Well, they get burned out too.
Anymore.
I think there's some burnout here that's got to be a factor. Al, thank you. On the text line, Pete, you're not wrong about anything when it comes to sports with the kids. Ours are 11, 9, and 6. I'll be curious to see how your perspective changes in a few years. Our older kids have begun to specialize simply based on preference and logistics. Teams want to practice year-round in lots of sports. It's logistically impossible with multiple kids if you don't have grandparents around to help taxi. I get that, but, Patrick Mahomes is 30. He grew up in basically the same era, and he was doing 3 sports. It's not like he's a 50-year-old man. It's a different time. I mean, that's been around for a bit, and if the guy who was the kid of a Major League Baseball player who was obviously the best growing up at probably all 3 of those sports, if he can do 3 sports, I mean, if your kid's only into a sport or 2, then obviously that's a different deal, right? That's a totally different deal. So I understand that. If your kid's like, no, I really want to focus on X, okay, then, you try to make that happen. It's just if it's being forced by parents, that's where it's problematic. Alex in Liberty. What's up, Alex?
Hey, Pete. Nice you take my call. The problem I've got with, these rec leagues and stuff is it's really good for the kids. They can play a bunch of different sports, but then you also get these teams that are competitive teams that want to and are allowed to join these rec leagues, and then they are just so much better than these kids that are in rec leagues. It really hurts them wanting to be in the rec league.
Well, I agree. I've not heard of that, but I agree. That shouldn't be a thing where basically travel teams stick together, go to rec leagues, and they're beating up on other teams.
Go to rec leagues, just to dominate and get a practice in that's real competition, like it's competition-based to practice. But, yeah, it's not fair for the other kids. Or if it's a co-ed league, and then all of a sudden you got these teams that are just like all boys teams.
That's crazy. I have heard of that. I know that I'm not trying to call anybody out. I don't know how prevalent this is.
Liberty is terrible at that.
Oh, okay. No, and I know that Blue Valley has some co-ed stuff going on that's got some people bent out of shape on certain sports. So I understand that's a thing, and I don't know how you basically legislate that if you've got one team that's got a bunch of boys and one team that has a bunch of girls. I don't know how you do that. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, if it's a rec league, you're only supposed to be able to carry X amount of players, and the rest of them are supposed to be randomly put on teams.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I mean, and also these rec leagues know that some of these teams are competitive. Maybe you don't let them sign up for the rec league.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I have not experienced that, Alex. Thanks for the call. I have not experienced that personally. But if you got a team of kids that have been staying together and they're doing some travel stuff and then they're also doing rec stuff just to get their jollies and blow other teams out, to me, that's crazy. That's unacceptable. Because all you're doing is demoralizing the kids who are just there to play rec sports. On the text line, Pete, here's something controversial. Kids don't have to play sports. I agree with that. They don't. I think they should try it. I think there's value in being on a team that you can't learn anywhere else. But I'll tell you right now, if my kids are like, hey, listen, I tried this, I tried soccer, I tried this, softball, I just don't want to do it, I would never force them. I mean, I wouldn't let them quit mid-season if they signed up. I agree with that. But I wouldn't force them. I mean, Claire even said to me, we did this little softball thing this summer. I was like, what are you thinking? Did you like softball? She said, yeah, I liked it, but I don't think I want to do it again. I was like, why not? She's like, it's too hot. I was like, all right, I can't argue there. I mean, geez, it's July. So, yeah, it's hot. Oh, my goodness. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Something happened yesterday outside of a courthouse that really had me bothered. We'll tell you what that is next. Well, we are continuing to get information on the Luigi Mangioni trial, or the case, I should say. Yesterday, the judge dismissed the state terrorism charges against Luigi Mangioni, the man who was accused of shooting United Healthcare CEO. And that happened yesterday. And what happened outside the courthouse? Well, it was just beyond disturbing and disgusting. Here's what it sounded like.
Free! Luigi! 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 Free! Luigi!
And it kept going on and on and on. At least they didn't try to get cute with their chants. It was one guy, one ringleader yelling free, and the rest of the crowd, a few dozen of them, would yell Luigi. And we're sitting here, a week after Charlie Kirk got assassinated, 1 week ago today. Can you believe it? And this is happening yesterday outside of a courthouse in New York City, where they're chanting to free a man who is all but certain to have shot and killed the United Healthcare CEO, who was just walking down the street in Manhattan going to a conference. If this is not just the latest and most obvious example of good versus evil, it's not left versus right. It's good versus evil. On display in the United States, I don't know what is. There is no self-awareness. There is no self-reflection. There obviously is no faith-based approach for any of these people. They are chanting and celebrating the release of a stone-cold killer. They are sympathetic with a guy who shot and killed a man who left behind, like Charlie Kirk, a wife and a couple of kids, who was innocently walking down the street going to a job because they didn't like the company. They don't like the industry. They are basically sitting there and allowing and supporting violence for companies they don't like in a capitalistic free society. This is the world that we find ourselves in right now. Whether we like it or not, we have to at least admit this is the world that we find ourselves in right now. And these people weren't even in their COVID masks yesterday. I figured they might put on their little COVID masks because they would realize, hey, I probably shouldn't have my face out there. God forbid this gets back to my employer or somebody I know or family or friends. I don't want to be embarrassed at the very least. No, they were all unmasked. They have no shame. They have no decency. They're demonic to their core. And they are sadly a growing part of the population in this country today.